the opposition wants to include political participation and these people within the democratic framework. This inexistent, invisible democratic framework that has yet to be concrete. This framework has yet to be formed, Mrs. Speaker, and they still don't have enough effectivity when it comes to protest itself. We say that the reason that our proposal to temporarily suspend this right to protest is because before you can even ensure the exercise of rights effectively, before you can even ensure that these people are going to be heard and any outcome is going to come from this protest, you have to make sure that there's stability within the region itself, Mrs. Speaker. Because what they've entirely ignored is the context of new democracies itself. They gave examples of, hey, we're registered in Singapore, hey, we're registered in Thailand. But you have to understand the context of why new democracies need this type of protection, Mrs. Speaker. Because in terms of new democracies, what is there actually an outcome when you come to the protest? And secondly, what exactly are they protesting for? The first idea, Mrs. Speaker, is that the outcome. You see there's constant rallies, say whether in Thailand, whether in Pakistan, you see them rallying, demonstrating, and the outcome, what is it? You don't see any effect from it, or exactly what do they want. The outcome of what they want to achieve in what a liberal democracy could actually achieve isn't exactly there, Mrs. Speaker. So we don't see any effectivity at all when it comes to securing stability, which is one of the rights that you need in a democratic society itself. Secondly, what exactly are they protesting for? Because it isn't like in liberal democracies where they're protesting for their, trying to protect their rights, saying, hey, animal rights, hey, gay rights, or whatever. But what they're trying to protest, Mrs. Speaker, is the nature that they're protesting is that the disagreement about the form of government that they want. In other words, Mrs. Speaker, the head of these protests, Mrs. Speaker, is not championing rights of democracies like in liberal democracies. They're actually championing their rights to go back into the reign of power, Mrs. Speaker. In other words, these leaders behind these protests are saying the reason why this instability is occurring from authoritative back to democracies, from regime back to democracy, is because of these protests in the first place, Mr. Speaker. Because you allow these people headed by these regimes with these dictators to go and take out physically out to the people and trying to gain their support through protests. It's not through a democratic framework, Mr. Speaker, but it's through these protests exactly is what's causing the instability of the new democracies. So before you want to talk about political stability or political participation, how can that be assured without suspending these rights in the first place? We don't know if, we don't really understand the idea that, oh, it's enough check and balance to really register when you see that there's still going to be instability when you overturn. Because they're not championing the rights of democracy within the protest, Mr. Speaker. They're trying to champion another form of government to revert back to another regime. And that's exactly what we fear, Mr. Speaker. So what I'm going to talk about, Mr. Speaker, is about the idea how if you really want to include these people in a democratic frame, then you have to suspend these rights, because that's the only thing that you're going to do. You first have to create comfort, Mr. Speaker, and how to make sure that the stepping stone that they're on the same line. We're for democracy, Mr. Speaker. We're not trying to revert back. Before that, yes.
Look, what happens if the opposition party isn't working? What happens if the media isn't working? And then you don't allow them to protest? What's the next step?
No, Mr. Speaker, we've already told you we're not going to take away their rights to voice to voice out their opinions. But what we have a problem, Mr. Speaker, is the nature of protest when you have these leaders trying to overturn the government. It's not a completely shut up, don't say anything, Mr. Speaker. That's why, because in democratic societies, when it comes to elections, these people have to win the hearts of the people anyway. So that's already an existing check and balance there. But the problem is how these elections can't even take place in the first place, Mrs. Speaker, because there's so much riots of whether they want it or not. So what's the idea of what happens, the difference when you suspend these rights, Mrs. Speaker, and how these so-called opposition parties or check and balances can exist within the platform? Because when you allow protests, Mrs. Speaker, when you allow protests, especially when you're trying to champion a cause that's not within line with democracy, Mrs. Speaker, it's actually protests, these type of protests are seen as a form away from the legal means, away from the means which democracy is supposed to afford you in the first place. So, Mr. Speaker, let's give a simple analogy that this these leaders, when it comes to, they can no longer go to the streets and try to rally the support. No, what they have to do is to change the mindset that, okay, my authoritative regime is no longer going to work. My way of controlling people is no longer going to work by mere protest. So what he has to do is he has to now, this dictatorship who's causing the instability in the first place, has to go within the democratic framework and garner the support through legal means, through these democratic means, through elections, not through protests by pitchforks and anything, by trying to overturn the government, by trying to beat, say, the government in their own way, but they still aren't allowed to revert back to the initial, revert back to this military dictatorship. Because by now, you have to actually confirm, deny within this leadership. So you see, Mr. Speaker, the problem with protests is that you already see this division between the people who are for democracy and who want to revert back to this authoritative regime. Because it's different in the United States when you see elections. Even though you have this Democratic Party or Republican Party, these are merely labels. But both of these, Mr. Speaker, are championing the cause of democracy, Mr. Speaker. In other words, the mindset of the people, they've already accepted this type of democracy. And they've already settled that, hey, we're going to champion democracy. But the problem in new democracies, Mr. Speaker, is that they're still unsure of whether they want to conform to democracies itself. Even though there is they want the benefits from democracy, you want to have accountability, you want to have security, but you still have these cronies, you still have these people who want to try and revert back. This is the reason why they can't even decide on the form of government, Mr. Speaker. How do you expect them to progress and catch up? If they haven't even made up their mind to ensure that there's a stable concrete, how do you make sure they reap all the benefits that democracy has to afford them in the first place, Mr. Speaker? The bottom line is, Mr. Speaker, is that we're trying to create a concrete foundation for democracy. The fact that there was a transition from a past regime shows that these people want democracy, they want the benefits of democracy, they want stability. But all of this is disrupted when you have these people protesting to the streets against it and trying to champion a cause which is against democracy. And when in this era when you want democracy to stand, this is the way to do it, to suspension of the right to protest until there is a stable democracy which can afford them their protection. Thank you.
All of that fits into my argument. Just do whatever.